will be given a chance to discuss the matter, and then after that, we will open the floor to the public for discussion before the committee deliberates.
Thank you. Do we have approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any changes? Hearing none, are there any objections to adopting the agenda? The agenda is here approved. For agenda item 4, we have before us the minutes of the August 26, 2011 for approval. Do we have a motion?
I move the approval of the 26 August 2021 minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Any changes or discussion? Seeing none, any objections to approving the minutes? Hearing none, the August 26, 2021 minutes are approved. Cooking along. Moving on to action item 5A, MTP 2050. Craig, will you be presenting?
Our project manager will take care of that. Mr. Aaron Yonganailan, senior planner. There he is.
Hello, everyone. I'm back again. I'm Aaron Yonganailan. I am a senior planner with AMATS, and I'm the project manager for the 2050 MTP update. Oh, okay, so we are well underway with this plan. And we have 2 items before you to look at today for your recommendation and hopeful approval. The first is the public involvement plan, and then the second will be the guiding principles and vision statement. So I'll go through each pretty briefly and then discussion if you would, any questions. So the first is the public involvement plan. So before we get too much into this, I'd like to have everyone keep a couple of things in mind with this project as we're moving forward. The first is that we have a pretty strict deadline on approval for this project. It's every 4 years per federal regulation based on when the last one was approved, our air quality conformity attainment when it was approved. And that was in August 26th of 2020. So our next one has to be approved by FHW and FTA by August 26th of 2024, and time is quickly passing. So we are trying to keep that in mind as we move forward. And the second thing to keep in mind is the 2040, it took a little longer than we anticipated and ran over. And at the end, we were kind of rushing to make sure that we got it done on time. And we didn't have as much time to be able to make changes based on the comments we heard from people at the very end. So we had a number of comments carried over from the 2040 to the 2050. One of my primary motivations for the 2050 and kind of the schedule that we have set is making sure we don't have that happen again. I don't like carrying comments over. I like being able to address the comments as part of the plan. So that is something we keep in mind as we're moving forward and people are asking us to do things like extend comment periods and time. We're trying to be as flexible as possible with our schedule, but know everything is kind of a give and a take. If we want to extend a certain period of time for something, then it's going to have to come from somewhere else. Okay, so what is the public involvement plan? Pretty simply, it's a document that we have that outlines how we're going to be interacting with stakeholders during the development of this plan. Stakeholders, members of the public, committees, resource agencies, etc. In the public involvement plan, we talk about different things such as the website, which is live. Unfortunately, if you are a municipal employee or somebody accessing the internet through the municipal internet, you do not have access to the website. It is IT's policy that newly designated websites, so new domains, are blocked until you ask them to unblock it. So I have a request into IT to ask them to unblock it so people like me as the project manager and others can actually access the website. So when that happens, it'll be a good day. But it's out there for people now to take a look at, and it talks about the project, and that's where we'll be posting a lot of our documents or comment response summaries we have, things like that. So it's our main area that we're recommending people to go to kind of follow along with the project. The rest of the public involvement plan talks about different tools that we will use for engagement, so surveys, public meetings. Right now, our public meetings that we'll have are recommended to be virtual for the most part, recognizing that there may be some meetings that will have a virtual and in-person presence. Each of those will be determined by us as the project team. As long as we can do it safely, we will incorporate hybrid where possible. Sorry, did you want to?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Let the record show that Mr. Weldon joined us at 1:37. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we talked about just other tools that we're going to be using, such as Miro, which is a whiteboard kind of virtual tool that we'll be using during the public meetings. It's a really handy tool to sit there and have interaction with the public and be able to capture their comments and notes on there, and then be able to save it for later. I'll just note for everyone, if you are looking to get into your iPad, the password is on the document or the thing itself. Okay. Okay, and the last thing we have in there of major importance to talk about for the public involvement plan is the schedule. Kind of at the end, it's our big table at the end that talks about all of our major public involvement milestones. And it talks about what they are, the duration, and when we kind of expect them to happen. You will note that at the beginning of the table, with the first kind of public involvement opportunities we have, they're a little more specific about when they're going to happen. And then as we move along, they get a little more general. And that's because it's recognized that at this time we don't know the exact dates of when everything's going to happen. We're at rough time, just to give people a heads up on what to be looking out for. I will note, one of my many faults is I don't have the ability to see into the future. So I apologize for that. It's something I'm working on. So when we developed this schedule, it was our best guess. And so this schedule will be kind of a living document that we'll be using if something happens and we need to make adjustments to comment periods and things like that. Please recognize that this is just our attempt at putting this down on paper. A good example of this is at the very beginning of the table, you will see that one of our first public involvement opportunities is the goals and objectives. When we first looked at it, we thought we were going to do a 15-day public comment period, because our original assumption was we'd be taking the 2040 goals and objectives, which were pretty robust. We did a 6-month update of them in the last MTP. So we thought that we wouldn't have to do as much of an update, more of a refinement based on comments we heard from people or projects that have been approved since the last MTP update. However, staff got together last Friday and spent a rather long meeting going through the comments or everything for the goals and objectives. And we made more changes to the goals and objectives than we had originally anticipated. So with that in mind, I do have a recommendation that I'd like to have you consider when you're looking at approval of this document today, is to change the comment period for the goals and objectives from 15 days to 30 days. 30 days is pretty standard for us. Our original attempt is to try and streamline some of these original processes in the beginning, so we have more time at the end to be able to give people longer review of the overall document as a whole. That change from 15 to 30 days will impact the schedule a little. For example, we do not have the performance measures and targets available for you to review. Those will be sometime in January or February now. So there is a small delay, but the project team and I are confident that it is something we can deal with at this point. And the amount of changes we're making, we just didn't feel comfortable putting it out for 15 days. Additionally, we did hear from a few members of the public that 15 days was not a long enough period of time, especially for community councils to be able to get together and provide their input on the goals and objectives. So I strongly recommend we do 30 days for those. And then I think that's it for the public involvement plan.
Yes, any comments or questions by the committee? Ms. Altel.
Thank you. I appreciate this chart. It's very helpful. I guess what I would like to see or know is when you plan to intersperse your opportunities with the FCC, the Federation of Community Councils, because those folks are going to go back and report to the community councils, and then the community councils are going to determine whether or not they're going to take action. Often, that's how it typically works. And I see that there's outreach to the FCC built into the plan, but I don't see if there are particular points of outreach for the FCC. So if that's contemplated, that would be really helpful. Otherwise, I would recommend that all public comment periods be about 60 days, because the bylaws of many community councils require introduction in one meeting before adoption in the next. And what I'm hearing from my constituents, or we're hearing from constituents across the city, is that it's just not enough time to put forward timely comments to have a full community council consider them. So I don't know how we balance those interests, but maybe one of the ways is to maybe schedule specific times with the FCC in this so that we can alert community councils that's going to be happening, and so they're aware, and we can help facilitate that communication.
So FCCs are included on all of our communication that we have as AMATS. They are part of our mailing list. So anything we send out in our mailing list, which is everything, FCC is aware of.
And I appreciate that, but I guess I understood this, your interaction with the FCC wasn't simply going to be sending out notice, but actually presenting to the FCC at particular points in time, or is that not the case?
No, if they ask for it, I can go and give them a presentation, but we don't automatically assume a presentation because we don't know what community councils or different groups want. You know, they need to reach out to us to let us know that they would like us to come and give a presentation on a document or so.
Okay, I guess I would like to see in the public participation plan for this, and one way to remedy some of the feelings of the community councils of not having enough time is getting on the schedule of the FCC at key points so that the FCC is aware that key input points, and they can get the overview so that those FCC delegates can go back into their community councils and make sure that everyone is aware. Otherwise, we get folks who are upset because they're either feeling pressured at the last minute or the deadline's been missed. And hopefully that would drive earlier and more substantive participation instead of all at the very end, which I think is what we saw with the MTP 2040. I'm going to think about if there's an amendment to make around those comments, but that's kind of where I'm at right now with it.
So I do want to follow up. A couple of things. One, we actually had almost as much involvement in the very beginning as we did at the very end of the 2040. So people were involved at almost all stages. We just ran out of time at the very end because of our lengthy comment period. 60 is not doable for us for pretty much any of our comment period times. Even in our current state as we have it now, we are just barely meeting the approval schedule of the MTP. So just something to think about. And one of the things we're trying to do this go around is recognize that when we post things to the TAC agenda or the policy committee agenda, that whole month is an opportunity for groups to get some kind of notice from us, I guess above and beyond our regular notice that the agendas are out, to let them know that this is their time to start looking at what is being posted. The goals and objectives, for example, we are intending on sending out a email to our mailing list to let them know the goals and objectives are out on draft format for the committees to look at. We recommend that you take a look at them and start doing that now so you can have enough time to meet during the comment period to get your comments into us, recognizing we do have kind of a condensed schedule on some things. Additionally, we're going to let them know that there are other points that they can comment on. So for the goals and objectives, we have a survey that'll be going out that people can take and provide their comments on. And then we have an actual workshop that's been delayed from December to January now, where people can come and provide their comments and interact with us in that regard. So there are multiple opportunities for people to provide their comments on the goals and objectives, as well as their ability to provide comments on the goals and objectives throughout the plan update, and recognition from staff that if we're in the middle of something and somebody gives us a comment on goals and objectives, then we're going to look at it and to best our ability. And if it's a change that we can incorporate into the plan, we want to do that at that point instead of just delaying everything to the end. Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron. Are there any other questions from the committee? Mr. Wellington?
Actually, I have 2 points. One, to follow up on that, you know, the way I look at this is really, you got the 30 days for the public comment. It's really a 51 day, because that notification goes out 21 in advance. So here's what's coming at you, goes to all community councils, plus the FCC and everyone else in the world. And then they can get it on their agenda during that period and then deal with it during the 30 days. So I don't see a real constraint from community council side. Comment on FCC, and I'm the community council chair on the FCC for a number of years. And if you were we to rely on FCC, then they go to their community councils, then the community councils put it on their agenda, then they deal with it. You have 3 months minimum. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, you should go straight to community councils, they decide, And FCC is really just a coordinating body for community councils. But if you don't go straight to community councils and only FCC, that's not correct. So, notify them all, but, community councils are independent bodies from the FCC. They're not run by the FCC. But that's just a coordinating thing. So just for your help there. I think this going to 30 days kind of gets you where community councils can respond. Now, I want to go back though is with the 2040, MTV 2040, you did get a lot of comments, including from the assembly on goals and objectives way late, okay, for them to be incorporated. But my understanding is you're going to take those and those would influence your starting point for this one. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so that adds on. That's important. But a lot of the community councils that you'll hear from now probably have essentially the same comments that they did then. So your starting point probably won't be that far, for you to start working on it.
That's our hope. We did. So I can talk about this a little because you'll be seeing the goals and objectives soon, next month. So we took kind of key things, and this came from multiple sources. So we said we were going to look at the comments and the policy committee resolution that you passed about the parameters for the 2050 said that we would look at comments that were carried from the 2040 forward. Additionally, we looked at the new projects that have been developed since then, so the Spinard Corridor Plan, the non-motorized plan, and the Transit on the Move plan, as well as taking a look at the comp plan again, the land use plan again, the climate action plan again, and then federal requirements for the FAST Act, MAP 21 and the FAST Act, and making sure that we are in compliance with them. One of the things we found is we had a lot of goals and objectives. We had 37 objectives. That's a lot to keep track of and be able to adhere to. So one of the things we wanted to do is there a way we can condense those down a little, not much, just a little, and still make sure that we're adhering to everything. So the comments we heard from the 2040 did actually influence the 2050 goals and objectives. And we've set it up so when people are looking at the goals and objectives, they can see the 2040, the comments we got from the public in one column next to it, and the plans or other things we looked at to see how we're consistent with them, and then our final recommendation on it. So it's easier for people to follow along, okay, this goal here or this objective here had these kind of comments on it. What did staff recommend? And it's easier to follow along that way. So yes, we did use those comments as a starting point for the update of these goals and objectives.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Any comments from the public? We are online as well.
We have no comments right now.
Thank you. What is the will of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
Are there any objections to approving the motion?
I have a motion to amend, please, or amendment, please, I'd like to make. I move to amend that there be an FCC meeting presentation in December 2021, as well as an FCC meeting presentation prior to the 30-day comment period commencing with regards to the draft project strategy and phasing, with regard to the public review period for the draft 2050 MTP. So the summer, fall 2023.
Before public workshop 3.
Between public workshop 3 and the time open for the draft MTP comments being due.
Okay. So after public workshop. So when was the first one?
December 2021, because it falls in between public workshop 1 and the comment period being due on February 2022.
Sorry, for mine, can you list those again? I just want to make sure I got those right.
Sure. The first one is December 2021, so between public workshop 1 and the public comment period for project prioritization criteria.
Okay.
And then fall 2023, in between that time, between public workshop number 3 and the public comment review period the public review period for draft 2050 MTP.
Okay.
With flexibility to schedule them as appropriate, but to give notice to the community councils that these deadlines are coming up.
So it's not specific with respect to the month, it's more relative to the other things that are on the timeline?
That was correct, yes.
Yeah, we'll have some adjustments. The December one will be a little adjusted in terms of our schedule there because we're having to extend the comment period. December of 2021, we're having to extend the comment period for the goals and objectives. So we'll be moving that workshop and the criteria thing around. Do you want us to do the presentation to the FCC about the goals and objectives or just before we do the criteria?
The amendment doesn't have a second, so I don't know if there's.
Oh, no, I.
Oh, he-
Okay,
Mr. West.
okay, I didn't hear it. I was like, we're
Sorry,
gonna get
well, I
the
wouldn't
leads
understand
before,
how
okay.
that's supposed to happen. Sorry.
You know, I want it so that the FCC delegates who are there can take whatever's most important back to their community councils to elicit hopefully appropriate feedback. So some of that is in your wheelhouse because you are the expert. But whatever, so mainly I want them to be aware of the comment period and a brief overview of what you're soliciting comments about.
Okay.
Just,
So I support the amendment, but again, I would be careful in your wording is if you go to FCC and say, I'm here to present so you can bring it back to your community councils, you have shot yourself in the foot. You could go there and present and say, and your community councils have been informed, we sent this email with all these documents.
Okay.
So you're just reiterating, but to make them a critical step would be appropriate. A critical step in the education process, just one piece.
are there any objections to approving the motion as amended?
While you're thinking about this, I asked, can you make some kind of action on the 15-day to 30-day change for the goals and objectives comment period?
That was the second
Okay.
amendment I had.
Thank you, sorry.
So I moved to amend that the comment period move from 15 days to 30 days as recommended by staff.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any objections to approving the second motion? Sorry, second amendment. Hearing none, it is also approved. All right, moving on to action item 5B, the 2019 to 2022 TIP administrative.
Let me just clarify, Aaron, were we
Sorry.
just doing that was just for the public involvement plan, or now we're doing the guiding principles?
That's
and
correct, we do
Okay.
have another item.
We have another part of 5A, sorry. So now he's gonna talk about the guiding principles and vision statement.
Thank you.
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud. Aaron, please continue with 5A, item 2.
I apologize, it's a little crazy. Okay, so the next thing we have here are the guiding principles and vision statements. So both the PIP and this document, the guiding principles and vision statement, are pretty critical for the MTP. It's one of the cornerstones that we use to help guide our project moving forward. So guiding principles, what we did is we took the resolution that the policy committee passed because it gave us parameters, and we built upon that in making our assumptions about what kind of guiding principles we had. So, you know, basically, we wanted to make sure we're following along with all federal requirements. So we outlined what those are. And then we also wanted to talk about how we're incorporating local planning into our process. So the climate action plan, the 2040 land use plan, the comp plan, et cetera. And we also mentioned in there about how there's some project or comments that were carried forward from the 2040 to the 2050 and how we're going to be addressing those and incorporating them. We don't give specifics on here's every comment we're looking at and here's how we're addressing it, just that we are going to be incorporating it into our process. Part of the guiding principles is also public participation, equity. You know, we really wanted to call out equity. In the past, it's kind of been intermixed in everything we do, but it often gets lost in everything that we do. So we wanted to be a lot more upfront about equity, not only in our public involvement process, but in our development of everything, our goals and objectives, our criteria, our project selection. So just fair, honest opinion. hard for us to deal with equity, not just us, but the entire country. Equity is a difficult thing to incorporate in, so it's a learning process for us. So please excuse us if we don't get it 100% perfect the first time through, and we could use your guys' help if there's something that we're missing that you would like to see. And then another thing I wanted to bring up are data sources. So in the 2040, we had a lot of comments from people talking about the data that we used for our modeling assumptions and how it was outdated and we needed to use more current data. A lot of what is used is based on what's available at the time, and not at the time that people look at the document, but the time that we develop the document. Data for us is a snapshot in time. We have to be able to take a look at where we're at that point and then move on, because if we're constantly updating it, we're never going to actually be able to get the plan done. So we wanted to be upfront and honest with everyone that for the 2040 or 2050 MTP, we're going to be using 2019 data as our base year. We have had comments already about why are we using 2019 and not 2020 or 2021. We're still in 2021, so the data is not available and won't be for a while. So I can't delay the project to wait for that data to be available. And then 2020 is a tough one because it was in the middle of COVID, or right when we were doing things like the emergency order and people were working from home more often. That's kind of changed now that we're in 2021. So 2020 is a difficult year to incorporate into our modeling. So our recommendation is to use 2019 as it is a more stable year, more consistent with historical. And then when we start looking at things like shifting modes from single occupancy vehicle to other options, it's more impactful for the transportation system if you have that kind of stable historical data to look at. And then we'll have 2021 be the base year for the fiscal assumptions. So then the vision. The vision for 2050, we made a little different than the 2040 because we felt that the 2040 was a little too not encompassing, not kind of a general overarching thing for us. So we took out a lot of the like buzzwords or the technical words that were used in the 2040 that are part of our lexicon as transportation planners. And we tried to adjust some of them to be more where other people can understand, you know, safe, accessible. Those are still a little bit, you know, we have things like reliable in there. Those are kind of some things we have to keep, but we added things like healthy, connected neighborhoods. We have heard from the public and we have seen other MPOs across the country really start to focus on integrating health into your transportation development process. And so we wanted to do something similar with ours. And we put in stuff about, you know, we're winter communities and we want to be an adaptable and efficient multimodal transportation network. So we used adaptable because we felt it was more all-encompassing of everything that we have to look at. Changes to how people drive, how people work and live, work, and play, climate change, other things like that. So spent some time on the vision statement. I loved the exercise we did because we used the Miro whiteboard for this, so it gave us a good example of what that looks like when we were developing it, and it was a fantastic piece of software to use. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Agenda. All right. Are there any questions or comments from the committee on action item 5A2, guiding principles and vision? Ms. Alto.
Thank you. Thanks, Aaron. Is there a national resource, like technical assistance resource on equity that could be mentioned in here that we could possibly tap into? I appreciate the municipal chief equity officer being there, but you know, depending on the expertise held in that position, and it's not necessarily always related to transportation, I was wondering, or maybe if we just made a more general reference to that, then we would know to look, you know, both to best practices around the country and then see what that applicability may be here in Anchorage.
Yeah, we wrote it before the stuff happened. So, you know, that's a good idea. And we can go ahead and look and see if there's maybe some nationwide resources that we can incorporate in there. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but we can go back and look at that.
Yeah, my Google search pulled up lots of grants for that work, but not necessarily the expertise. But okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions by the committee? Yes.
You know, I understand your point with the data that you would use, and it's fairly clear, 2019 base year, but when that first travel demand model runs the recommendations, will incorporate the latest available data. 12, 18 months from now, people are gonna say, you didn't do that. How come you didn't use 2021, or, right? You're gonna, I would say, incorporate the data available when modeling commences, or make it just say right there, we'll incorporate 2019 data.
For, the travel model runs at the top.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Is that
So,
more what you're saying, 2019 data, right?
yeah, so there's multiple sources of data. That's why it's a little difficult. So we have traffic data, and then we also have socioeconomic data. So population, households, and projections. If the census data will hurry up and come out, we can utilize that. But it really depends on where we're at that point. We tried to keep it as consistent with federal requirements, which does say use the latest available data. But I'll see if I can work with the consultants on coming with something that's a little more, we'll see if we can put something a little more there that can help us in the future, you know, in case somebody comes back and looks at this in 3 years and is like, you didn't do what you said you were doing, so.
Yeah, well, if you read 4 lines later, it answers the question. It's just
So
not
just put it
everyone will.
earlier.
They'll pick the piece that worked.
Okay,
We all do that, I don't know. You read the first sentence and say, okay, there's my answer.
okay.
Got my answer. Moving on.
Any additional comments from the committee or questions? Seeing none, any comments from the public on action item 5A2?
Nothing online either.
Thank you. What is the will of committee?
What is the motion you want?
Just approval of the guiding principles and vision statement. I don't know if you guys want to make any edits to the equity and data portion based on what you said, to capture it as part of your motion.
Well, start with a move to approve the guiding principles and
Vision statement.
vision statement.
Sorry, we already did the. Good, thank you. Okay, second.
And I will move to amend to include national technical resources with regards to equity and clarification around the data sources as discussed.
Okay, second. The consultant's taking notes together.
Yeah.
They are there.
Okay. Are there any objections to approving the motion 5A2, which is guiding principles and vision statement with the amendment? Okay. Hearing none, the motion is approved. Moving on to item 5B, the 2019-2022 TIP administrative modification number 5.
All right, so we have a few minor changes here that we're asking you to do. You have the memo before you and the tables right after that. The memo reflects changes suggested in the CMAQ category, and that those dollars are part of the AMATS allocation. It is a very small change, basically an increase of $50,000 into the traffic control signalization project that is signal timing, and that's done by the municipal traffic department. And that's just reflecting that costs have gone up in 4 years, and probably should have had that ramping up as we go, but that was what they requested at the time. So, and it's $50,000, and we're just reducing the cost in the capital vehicles. That's the line item for replacement fleet over at transit, and $50,000 is out of the 11,581 or 11,981. That's not too bad. So we're suggesting that change. And then the other changes there were all in table 10. They relate to the railroads 5307 funds and the transit 5307 and 5340 funds. And those are just reflecting what they're doing with their allocation. It's not the AMATS allocation, but it is inside the TIP. So The TAC heard the changes in Table 10. The changes in Table 5 CMAQ were something that were added later, so they didn't hear those changes, but it's a pretty minor amount, and we're asking you to, the TAC recommended the Table 10 ones, and we're asking you to approve all of them. So have any questions? Be happy to answer or try and answer.
Thank you, Craig. Any questions or comments from the committee?
Yeah, sorry, I guess I need you to walk me through it, because I'm looking, I got the one on the AMATS stuff, but then the transit, there's a lot of red here, and I don't, so were those zeros not zeros before?
Yeah, if you look up above, you should see where it
Are
says,
you looking, are you in the table or the memo?
I'm in the table here,
so if you're in the memo,
or the memo, I guess,
the memo's a little easier to understand, I think.
I'm in the memo.
Should be back a page, you see that? You're in the memo, okay. So if you scroll down where it says Table 10 Transit, and then the first section is all in black and it says FFY 2019 to 22 tip amendment number 2, that's the current. And so you'll see it has 4.5 for preventative maintenance, et cetera, 200,000 for fleet replacement expansion. And then if you scroll down, you'll see now the dollar figure for preventative maintenance is 4.1 million as opposed to 4.5. So does that make?
Okay, yeah, I did, one was where we were, okay.
Okay. Yeah, we used to just do the tables and hope that you could figure that out. And then I think it was Aaron when he was over at DOT thought, let's really spell this out a little more clearly in the memo. And I think it helps a lot more to understand. So
what was the impetus for, so we've increased substantially transit center support facilities?
yeah, it went from 750,000 to 1.8 million. I don't know if anyone from Transit is online. I think I saw Bart Rudolph was on earlier, but I don't know if Ms. Acton is on, but. Bart's still on? Do you want to ask Mr. Rudolph if he's?
Oh, he's on? Yeah.
He's on,
Great.
so
What's going to do with all that money?
put him on the spot.
Sorry, I'm trying to look at the memo. I don't have it pulled up and it's not fully shown on the screen here on Teams. So to track which line item you're talking about.
Okay, so the question came up on the current tip in your, I'm not sure if it's 5307 or 5340, but I think it's the 5307. You have in your current allocation transit centers, support facilities, 750,000, and in the amendment it goes up to 1.8 million. So curious, Mr. Weddleton was curious as to the change there, the addition. I don't know if you knew.
I do not know off the top of my head. I'd have to look into that.
Some questions. So Bart, looking at this, the column says 2021. Is that calendar year? Or is that like a state fiscal year? I always get that flipped. And then, I mean, possibly we added a new bus route. Does that have bus stops? Could it be for that?
Yeah, it does. It does include that. When we do these tip amendments, we usually clean it up to reflect what was spent or what was requested from FTA to match what was actually done, more or less different than like forecasting what we actually need. So I'm assuming we did build 70 bus stops for the Route 85. That could be part of it. I just don't know for certain.
I do know that FTA funds are significantly more flexible in what they can do retroactively. FHWA is looking that way.
So is 2021 a calendar year then?
It's a federal fiscal year. So it's October 1 through September 30th.
We just started it then. So, okay, all right,
Yeah.
good. All right, that's good. Thanks, Bart.
Any additional comments or questions by the committee? All right. Any comments from the public on action item, excuse me, 5B? Online?
Nobody online.
Thank you. What is the will of the committee?
Move to approve the 2019-22 TIP Administrative Modification 5.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any objections to approving the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Action item 5C, 2022 to 2023 UPWP. Greg, are you presenting on this one?
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
this is our work program for the next 2 years. Just again, a reminder, you're very well aware of this. We have the MTP, which is 20 years, the TIP, which is 4 years, and those are all capital projects usually. And the UPWP is what is staff going to do with our planning funds. So it's divided into 6 elements. The first 2 and the last, well, the 100, 200, and 400 and 500 are done by mostly AMATS staff. The 300 is the health department and their air quality exercises. And then the 600 element is the public transportation department. And what we're asking you to do is release the draft narrative for a 30-day public comment. The federal rules require that we do that. They do not require a public comment period on the budget. And that's why you don't see a budget here yet today before you. The budget, we always receive that, we're supposed to receive it October 1. So we've been working on the narrative a little longer, but the budget we've just barely started working on to figure out exactly how those dollars are going to move around. For the most part, very similar tasks are being done, although we obviously have finished a non-motorized plan and the Bernard Corridor plan, so those are out, but we are picking up the safety plan, and the TDM is ramping up TISMO that Aaron is working on in the model update. So there are a number of tasks that have changed a little bit, but we are asking you to release the work program narrative itself for 30-day public review. That will, just due to the timing of the meeting schedule, that will bring it back to you before you in the December timeframe for final approval, and you'll have the budget at that same time as well. So happy to answer questions or try to on this.
Thank you, Craig.
Document.
Any comments or questions by the committee? Mr. Weldon?
So you'd have a budget for this in December of this year.
Mhm.
There's because it does feed a little bit into the budget we're working on now for the municipality. I think partly because some planning department, like Michelle, is partly AMATS funded and so on. Is that?
Yeah.
So I guess that works. You know what we come out with in our budget, and you're just then you feed it in.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be the first week of December.
Yeah,
okay.
There's some things that are pretty static in the budget. So, you know, the amount that we expect to spend on our local transportation planning, which is looking at right-of-way vacations and things of that nature and road projects, and certainly Michelle's time is a static. We know we budget for a certain amount for her. The difference will be is how much are we putting into the safety plan, because that's new for staff time. So, but most of those kind of fixed costs, the regular staff time will be very similar.
So now the safety plan, I think what we want to do is we've been using the state safety criteria, and we want to have our own. Is that what that safety plan?
Well, the safety plan is really designed to be looking at the whole city and what are the kinds of, I mean, safety plans are pretty common throughout, but we're trying to dial it down a little bit more than what was done with Vision Zero. So.
When does that start?
We're working on the RFP right now. We still have to do the TORA because it was part of what was included in Amendment 2, so it just got adopted last month. So I'm going to guess if we can get an RFP on the street first quarter next year, we'd be happy. It might be second quarter.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Are there any comments from the public on action item 5C? Sorry, yes, action item 5C, 2022-2023 UPWP. Online?
Nobody online?
Nobody online?
Thank you. What is the will of the committee?
Move to send for 30-day comment, is that the motion?
Yes, please.
Second.
Are there any objections to approving the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Craig, are there any other action items?
No, sir.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6A, AMATS Q3 newsletter. Craig, are you presenting?
This is just a way to let you folks know that it did come out. Hopefully you already received that in a couple different ways, but no actual presentation. I think Christine is doing a spectacular job of creating a newsletter and always trying to get out more information to the public. And there's some cute dogs in there too, so you might want to take a look.
Where are the cats, huh?
Well, they're cats, so, you know, we allow them to live in the house.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Any questions from the public? Online?
Nobody?
Thank you. Are there any further project and plan updates?
No, sir.
All right, then we'll move on to item 7A, general information. Ocean Dock Road reconnaissance study. Oh, and we have presenters, Craig.
We have presenters. It was not going to be me,
All right,
so it'll be good.
Right here, it's a good spot.
That works, yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Galen Jones. I'm with the Alaska Department of Transportation. I'm the project manager on the Ocean Dock Road reconnaissance study. I'm here with Jeannie Bowie and Jess Miranda with Kinney Engineering. So we're lucky to be working with them, with their team, due to their recent experience studying the Ocean Dock Road and C Street ramps intersection. And also that gave them a lot of good opportunities to work with many of the same stakeholders too. So good to have a team with past experience in the area on that. The goal of today's presentation is pretty simple. We're just going to introduce the project and then also to the team, and then outline the study's process, timeline, and goals. Thanks again for your time today, and I look forward to working with everybody. And I'll give it to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Try to advance this.
Is it?
Oh, that's fine. Or do you want to be in charge?
Sure, thank you. All right, appreciate this chance to to present this project to you as we're just getting started on it. So project team, Galen Jones, as he said, is DOT project manager. Kinney Engineering is the prime consultant. I'm Jeannie Bowie, a project manager for Kinney. And Jesse's our project engineer, so she'll be helping us work through the concept designs. And Joanne Mitchell is the public involvement coordinator. We also, one of our subs is HDR. We have two folks on the team who are railroad experts, Don McCammon, who does railroad engineering, and Rick Dickman, who's operations. And then also we have, as a sub, True North Sustainable Development Solutions, who are helping us with the cultural part of the environmental kind of information that we're collecting. So the study area is Ocean Dock Road down by the port from Ship Creek on the south, and then it goes up Ocean Dock Road all the way into the port to where the road kind of splits at Roger Graves Road. Galen mentioned the previous study that we did, that was just at the intersection that's marked X here. It's a little hard to see, but where the C Street ramps come down to and meet with Ocean Dock Road. We did a reconnaissance study about 3 years ago at that intersection and came up with some solutions and a recommendation. And this reconnaissance study is intended to take a look at the larger area and see if there are some improvements we can hopefully add on to that, or we might have to adjust it a little bit depending on what improvements we find. One of the things that we could not do with the intersection study was look at how at the tracks themselves and the road, like how they interact, and are there ways that we could reduce the interaction? Right now, a lot of the train movements block truck movements, and the train also has to kind of take into account what truck movements are happening and adjust because of that. So are there ways that we could reduce the amount of truck train interactions that are occurring? Beyond looking at that, we'll look at all the things that we looked at with the initial intersection study. There's similar problems in the whole area. Obviously, we're looking at safety, freight mobility, any way that we could reduce maintenance in the area. There's a lot of drainage issues in that area, and so are there better ways for us to handle that? And then also, especially between Ship Creek and the C3 ramps and then up to the Government Hill neighborhood, there's a lot of pedestrian and cyclist activity, and then also people coming there for like recreational fishing, the small boat ramp, there's people go and use that. So anyway, lots of other activity going on that you might not typically find in a port and railroad industrial area. So we'll be looking at, can we improve those interactions? So project stakeholders, obviously the railroad and the port are important stakeholders. We're also just trying to talk to everyone who might be interested in this area, including Government Hill Community Council, cruise ship industry. We had on Tuesday, we had a walkthrough with pretty much everybody in the left list, as well as the Alaska Trucking Association. Had a really good walkthrough, went down and walked the corridor with them and got everybody's concerns. And then we've also this week been meeting with the port tenants and operators and understanding how they're using the area and what their needs are, what they'd like to do. So that's kind of how we're started out with these stakeholders. Here's the general schedule that we're planning to follow. So we're in the midst of this data collection and understanding the stakeholders part. Once we feel like we have an understanding of all of the problems, we'll develop kind of a wide range of solutions. And that's another thing we've been doing, is asking people, how would you solve this problem? Or what do you see as opportunities? So we're going to put all of that into a concept study that will be beginning of next year, kind of February-ish. And then we'll take that study to an advisory council meeting. That'll be all of the stakeholders that we've talked to before that, and any additional ones that we want to pull in. Make sure that we've identified the problem and that we have a good range of solutions, and then also trying to narrow down to what's feasible, what do you want us to really look at? Once we have a couple feasible alternatives that make sense to look at, we'll do the concept drawings, we'll try and figure out how big of an improvement will those be, put that in the draft reconnaissance study report, and then we'll go back out to everybody with that, including, I think that's when we present back with you again, is once we have that draft recon study. Get all of the input. We'll also have an open house at that point, get input from the public, and based on all those comments, we'll make the final study. So that's our presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Wells?
Is this, where's the money for this come from?
From AMATS.
So it is our allocation, the city's allocation?
It's the AMATS tip.
It is, okay. How much
Well,
dollars?
it's a department road too, so I think the department's paying them back.
Who is that?
It's a department-owned road, so I believe they're paying the match on it.
State.
And then, yeah, state match.
It just occurred to me when you just, at some point, we're gonna be tearing out that north extension of the port that had the sheet pile. And I don't know where all that stuff came from, but it'll have to go somewhere. Maybe you can use it for your road. I'm sure it's expensive to haul it back out as well. Anyway. That's all I got. Thanks. Save some money.
Always thinking.
Well, I don't know, protected bikeway, 50 feet of fill higher.
Thought it came off the hill up on the base.
All right.
Okay.
Moving on to item 7B, Seward Glen Mobility Project.
They actually asked to present to you in November, so they're not here today.
Very good. Moving on to item 8, committee comments. Does anybody on the committee have any comments? All right. Item 9, public comments. Are there any comments from the public? Any comments online? Nothing online. All right. Item 10, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned at 2:28.
That's not the
They have to go back. 36th Avenue interchange, Sweden.
Yeah, I see I missed your call.
Yeah, let's do that.
Um,